Hello, good evening. I'm Lida Dubin, Executive Director here at the Center for Fiction. Thank you all so much for coming out. How many of you are joining us for the first time tonight? May I see a show of hands? Excellent. Welcome, welcome. Come back. The Center for Fiction is a 200-year-old cultural institution. Our mission is to encourage people to read and value fiction and to support and celebrate its creation and enjoyment. We do that through public events like this one, reading groups, writing workshops, all offering vibrant, accessible, and inclusive programs that welcome a wide community to experience the joy of story. Our Kids Read program offers immersive reading experiences for children, and we support early career writers with our First Novel Prize and our Emerging Writers Fellowship. So visit our site, sign up for the mailing list, follow us on social media, and if you like what you see, become a member and stay tuned into all of our activities. For example, come on back Monday, October the 28th. Award-winning playwright Samuel D. Hunter is visiting the center to discuss his play, A Case for the Existence of God. First performed in 2022 at Signature Theater, it's become one of this year's most produced plays. So welcome also to those of you joining us tonight via the live stream. And after the talk, we'll have an audience Q&A. So if you're here, raise your hand. We'll bring you a microphone. Please do use the mic so that the guests on the live stream can hear you. And for those of you on YouTube, please ask your questions on the chat, and we'll read one of those before we break. Our author was kind enough to pre-sign books, and we'll be doing a personalization line at the close of the event. So we are so lucky to be hosting the brilliant Attica Locke to celebrate the stunning culmination of her award-winning Highway 59 trilogy, Guide Me Home. Gabriel Bump, author of the upcoming novel Everywhere You Don't Belong, joins her in conversation. Welcome. Join us on stage.
Hot mic.
Okay,
Hot mic.
I think
Okay.
we're in. We're good. Hi. Oh my God.
Everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I'll take this.
That's your book.
Yes, it is.
Well, thanks for coming out tonight. Thanks for the Center for Fiction for hosting us. And can you all hear me all right? Do I have to adjust my mic? Are we good? Yeah, good. Okay. All right.
I can hear you, but
Yeah, you're good.
you're right here.
I mumble a lot, I think. So I guess I want to start first by saying congratulations
Thank you.
on finishing. I mean, it's like really remarkable trilogy, and we'll get into the nuts and bolts of it. But if anyone's read, I guess, like one of the books in this trilogy and haven't read the other ones, I read Bluebird a few years ago after I won the games and like saw you as a past winner. I was like, oh, this sounds really good, and I want to read it. And I read it and fell in love with it. And then this past weekend, read the final two installments of it.
That's a lot in one weekend.
I mean,
That's a lot of Darren Matthews.
Well, I have a kid, and so I just am sitting. I don't do anything else besides or I have a baby, and just hang out with him and read. But it was one of the most pleasurable reading experiences I've had in a really long time.
Oh my God.
Because it feels like this really big, realized world. And so can we start actually with how the Highway 59 trilogy came about? I guess let's start from the beginning before we get to the end.
Yes, so first of all, I'm from Texas, and I feel weird holding this. No, I'll just sit right back there. So I come from a long line of Black Texans going back to slavery. So most people know about the Great Migration and know about, for a large swath of the 20th century, Black folks leaving the South, going north and west, to just get out of the South. But my family is defined by the fact that we stayed. And some of that was because we were landowners. On both sides of my family, we were part of freedmen's towns. So using the Homestead Act to have land. And so there was just a sense of well, wait a minute, we kind of built the state and we got a little piece of land. Why are we going anywhere? We're going to stay, which also is a very Texas attitude of like, I dare you to ask me to leave. Like that's also some of that. My family has all of that in them. And my entire family is from little towns along Highway 59, which runs north-south on the east side. So literally every mom's side, dad's side, going back to slavery is from little towns. So as a child, I used to ride up and down this highway, going to visit aunties and grandparents. And, you know, I have said before, I feel like I became a writer on Highway 59 because I was in the back seat, you know, just daydreaming, just taking in the bayous and the thorny woods and just the kind of rural fantasia of it all. And I wrote a version of Bluebird, Bluebird as a film in 1999. I was a fetus, and I essentially
Which was what, 15 years before it came? Is that right?
More almost. I
yeah,
can't do the
okay,
math.
yeah.
But so I did the Sundance Labs, and I wanted to be a movie director, and so I had the story that had some of the elements of Bluebird, Bluebird. Darren wasn't in it. There were things that weren't in it, and I kept coming back to that idea, and I was of all things working on Empire, the television show, when I had this overwhelming feeling of wanting to go home. I want to go home. And I meant home to books, and I meant home to Texas. So I actually wrote, I hope Fox never finds out about this, I actually wrote my book proposal in the writer's room. I mean, if anybody watched that show, you'll know that in season 2 it went off the rails. And part of why it went off the rails truly is that the powers that be stopped listening to the writers. Like they just started arguing kind of among them. So we were all like, so we shopping, what are we doing? And I was like, well, I'm gonna write a book. I'm gonna write my way out of this job.
Yeah.
So I wrote a book proposal, and I wanted to do a new crime, new town, all along this highway. And my agent was like, that is fantastic, but a trope of the genre is, who's the person you're following? Who are you following? And I had to think of, who am I following? And I thought, is it a PI? Is it a lawyer? I mean, and then of course I thought of Texas Rangers, whose literal job is to range. And this highway goes all the way from the Mexico border to Arkansas. So I wanted, you know, all of this space for someone to be able to roam. And then I had to get over my bias about writing a cop. I was like, I don't know about that.
Well, particularly the Texas Rangers too have this like kind of really complicated, horrible history.
Yes,
about them, right?
they do. Yeah. So the Rangers, there's like 172 of them right now in the entire state. I think a state law has to be passed in order for you to have more of them. Like it's a set number. And I would say out of 172, 6 or 7, maybe 8 are Black, maybe 10 are Latino, and like 3 are women. Yeah. So it's a very still kind of white male group, but they were just responsible for pushing the Native Americans out. They done killed some folks. They were wild.
Was it post? Do I have the history right? Were they also chasing fugitive slaves, or they founded after?
They're founded in 1836. I think before Texas was even a state. I think. Yeah. Name it, they did it.
Yeah.
Name a thing you wasn't supposed to be doing.
Sounds like something they did.
Yeah, they did it. And so, and I probably didn't even know that deep of the history. And I was like, I'm gonna write about a Texas Ranger. And so then when I started looking into it, I'm realizing that I have to write a character who is aware of all of this and has to make peace with it. Yeah. You know what just popped into my head? I have a friend who's talking about not voting in the election for the top of the ticket. And it made me think, you guys know Kiese?
Layman.
Yeah.
Who's at Rice now, I guess.
I guess so. I guess so. One of his posts recently was about moral multitasking. Meaning, one of the things that I think people of color and women have to do is morally multitask. We are in front of us, however we feel about what happened on October 7th. I think we all think, well, shit, we ain't fixed it. Yeah. Whatever we're doing is not helping the situation. But there are ways in which people who have to think about their reproductive rights have to morally multitask. You have to wait, my tax dollars are participating in this thing I have feelings about, but I also have a child and a daughter, and I need her to be safe. And I think people on the margins have to do that a lot. And so Darren is a character who has to morally multitask in terms of holding the history of what the Rangers have done, but knowing that there's a possibility if I wear the badge, could that be different, better? Could I do something wearing the badge that rights a wrong in some way?
Yeah.
And then, of course, because it's a book and you're wanting all these exciting things to happen, he makes some not great choices that you begin to ask yourself: is moral relativity just a slippery slope to moral degradation?
Yeah, and it is interesting. I think that like the crime novel, particularly, I guess like the cop drama, is what it kind of be like. You do, like you see just this. It's more complicated than double consciousness, like the idea of double consciousness. But like you see it enacted in their relationship to Law and Order, but then even in the relationships between like his romantic relationships, his family relationships, and he's always balancing something, I guess, without giving it all away. So actually, before we kind of get more into it, would you mind reading?
I don't mind reading.
Yeah.
So it isn't just a
beautiful.
prop. Now we pull it out. Okay, we're gonna look at two passages about, I guess they're about hope in some way. This is Darren talking to an uncle that he's just met. And he's also talking about his father. A lot of this book is about Darren learning about a different mystery in his life. There's the upfront mystery of a missing girl, but then there's the mystery of I don't really know my mother and father very well. So Pete said he never did understand why Clayton was so dead set against two kids in love. Darren didn't know either, had always been told or assumed it had to do with Clayton's natural snootiness and wanting to keep his baby brother away from the air of lawlessness that surrounded Belle's family. But it also wasn't lost on Darren that around this exact time, Clayton was losing his beloved Naomi to his brother William. Perhaps trying to keep Duke and Belle apart was as much petty as it was principled. Perhaps it galled him to see another brother so happy in love. He nearly forbade his baby brother to see Belle anymore, especially when Duke started talking about marrying her. Well, that's not going to keep you out of Vietnam, Clayton said. Clayton had ordered Duke to put school first. The country was at war, Pete is saying, and still trying to live up to the promise of its creed, or however King put it, Pete said, his voice slowing, his whole posture sinking a little in the chair. He seemed fatigued, Darren thought, worn out from the effort of putting words in a pattern, lining them up in the right order. The whole country was a mess, and he searched for the word he wanted and seemed disappointed to only come up with hard. He shook his head. It was a hard time, Darren, hard to feel a sense of optimism. Darren leaned against the railing with his arms crossed, feeling a strange echo in the sentiment, in the despair over a country at war with itself. He wondered what those kids marching for civil rights, marching against Vietnam, would have made of the country today. Wondered which wounded the soul more, living in a country that had never kept any of its promises, or seeing America's capacity for good catch wind and fly for a while, only to come crashing back down. Let me read this other piece about hope and alcoholism, but hope. It wasn't like he hadn't tried to quit before. There had been a time when he and Randy first started getting serious. There had been a time around Bill King's pro forma trial for the murder of Ronnie Malvo. And of course, in the madness of the past 3 years, the book takes place in 2019. He'd woken many a night, bolted straight up in bed in a cold sweat, nights he swore he saw his uncle William sitting at the foot of his bed, always delivering the same message from the other side. You know you can't drink him out of office, right? He'd tap Darren's ankle and say, you can't right a sinking ship in retreat, son. Some part of him had known for a while that his drinking was slowly killing the one thing he trusted about himself, his ability to hope. It was a precious legacy he'd inherited from generations of Matthew's men and women. Sure, hope was too often offered instead of real change, a cheap placeholder for a better day, but it also kept people alive. You couldn't grow a tomato, a sweet pepper, or a peach without hope. You had to believe the land you were on could bear fruit to bother trying. You had to have vision to eat. Thank you.
It's just such a beautiful book. Such beautiful character.
Thank you.
That's why I wonder why stop? So
Well,
why is it ending? Why is it just a trilogy?
so many reasons. The first being the pandemic. So I started thinking about what would be what I thought the third out of 6, 7, 8 books, and I wanted to go to Laredo.
Yeah.
And it was 2020, and I couldn't go to Laredo, and I couldn't write about Laredo. And every book I read about Laredo told me you need to go to Laredo to write about Laredo. And we didn't know if we were ever leaving our houses again. I thought I don't know how to have a career as a novelist like this. I don't know how to do this. So I started then thinking, wait a second. But I wanted to write my next book, so I started pivoting from Laredo back to East Texas, and that was happening at the exact same time. And then I'm gonna turn this on in a second. I'm in menopause, everybody. So I'm on fire at all times. So anyway.
I can hold it.
No, all good. Anyway, so I have this other life in Hollywood. So then we got a green light to make my last show. Mm-hmm. So then I started realizing, well, that takes up a lot of time. So then there was this sense of like, well, if there keeps being this much space between books, will I be 65 still writing about Darren Matthews? Do I want that? Or do I want to find and get to know other characters? Then on top of all that, this book series inadvertently became about the Trump era in a way that I had not planned. When I wrote Bluebird, he had not been elected. He was running, but so was, I'm sure, a clown somewhere. I'm like, whatever. Like
Ben Carson.
Right, Ben Carson. Like, whatever. People are running. Who cares? Like, no, I was one of the people who did not know better. I didn't think he would be elected, and then he was, and suddenly Bluebird looked like this prescient novel where I actually writing it, I'm embarrassed. We're going to talk about my shame in a second. I was like embarrassed that I thought when I was writing Bluebird, I was really like, where you're making those Aryan brother people sound pretty bad, Attica. Yeah. Are they really? I mean, I feel so fucking dumb. I was like, are they really that bad? Yeah, they are that fucking bad. So then I left the book on a cliffhanger. So then suddenly I've got a thinking lawman who's black, who's been fighting the Aryan Brotherhood. Trump got elected. I can't just write my way out of it. I have to write through it. Mm-hmm. So then I just wrote through it. And I'm appreciative of the fact that this book series gave me space to process my feelings, about all of this stuff. But I also began to also feel fatigue by this. So I wrote Heaven My Home, the second in the series, that book came out in 2019. Since then, we had several impeachments, an insurrection, a global pandemic, George Floyd. The world had so deeply shifted that my ability to write about guns changed. My ability to write about a kind of faith in government, if it was bad before, it was even worse now. And I think there was almost a childhood fantasy that if you quit writing about Trump, he just goes away. And I'm being funny, but I also know that for me, I don't know that I want to keep looking at this era in history through this particular lens. And the character that I wrote, I don't want to give anything away, was going to end where this book ends. Mm-hmm. There was no way to be true to that character and not have this end the way it ends. So I just kind of leaned into that, and I had fear. I had a lot of fear because I worried people were going to feel like, this book is different. It has a different kind of energy about it. Like, they're all different. Bluebird is so sweet, and we're all gonna make it. We all kind of love each other, and isn't it great? And then Heaven My Home, everybody's kind of mad and caustic. Yeah. And this book, everyone seemed kind of exhausted and looking for the exit door.
Well, it is essentially like a campus mystery too, like a campus novel. So
two campuses.
Like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like this nice. It is a nice shift that you actually don't totally see in like detective series, like that total shift in place, I guess. But then also it turns into this like buddy cop thing. Him and his mom like go.
It's
kind
really,
of on the road.
and
it's like this sweet like buddy cop
it's
thing.
It's sweet, and also can I trust her?
Yeah.
It's so I was so interested in his heart more than I was interested in guns, and I was just at all of these. So this is my long way of saying, I think this is it. There is talk of Darren having a life on television.
Yeah, right.
One of the things when I go back to LA in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to all of these places and seeing, are they still buying TV shows? Do they want to buy this one? And I knew this was in the works, and I knew that I wanted my Darren to exist where he exists complete before we play and do whatever we do with him in television. Having done a couple of adaptations now, I have a firm belief in the series has to have things that the book doesn't have, and the book has to have things that the series doesn't have. They really have to kind of exist separately. And I wanted the psychological freedom to discover him doing different things, because I knew that who he is in my heart is complete, and he exists kind of on a shelf. So I've had, talking to people, I've had all these like, am I making a mistake? I've had all these feelings of like, oh no, I miss him too. But I don't know, there are a lot of other things I want to try and do. And this is a hard time to write about. And this is a very hard time to write about. And I was a person, this is the shame I was talking about. I am embarrassed by, or I've been ashamed by how undone I was by Trump. Like he literally broke my brain. Like everything about him broke my brain. And I was embarrassed that I didn't see it coming. I was embarrassed that I bought into a particular narrative about the country. Not post-racial, that's stupid. Nobody's talking about that. But I basically am a child. I'm born in 1974. My parents were activists. My lens on the world is post the Civil Rights Movement. And essentially, American history has looked bloody and difficult and hard, but it kind of was doing this. It was some beating some people on the fucking head along the way, but basically you're doing this. And I'm thinking, shit. And then Obama, well, look at America go. she just got her little stuff together. And I bought it. And the second Trump won, because I was on NPR the morning after he was elected. I was in my pajamas because it was like 3 a.m. in LA, and they had asked me because they thought we were going to have the first woman president. So real quick, I got it. I got what the fuck this was. But up until that moment, I honestly thought, there's no way, and there is a way. And now we have backslid so significantly. It's been painful. It hurts.
So I'm assuming you're feeling more cautious this time around. I'm guessing.
No, strangely, I'm back to hope. Look at me. You heard the passage. I can't help myself, because otherwise I'd be prostrate right now. I have a lot of hope, and I also think that, I'm sorry. I have a lot of hope. I don't think it's as close as people are saying. I think our journalists have fallen in love with horse race talk. I think they don't have enough numbers. I think, I don't want to call somebody out, but a person who's the head of a major organization, I went to hear this person speak, and they said, all of this is about that they're running out of white people. That's Dobbs, that's all. They're just running out. They don't have the numbers to keep this shit going. So I'm just hopeful that plays out. But the issue is shenanigans. The issue is tricks and, your voter card doesn't look right today. That's where you don't kind of know, or violence on the other side.
Or contesting.
Yeah, that's where I kind of don't know, but I'm strangely very hopeful.
Okay, we can.
Sorry, I'm so sorry I derailed us into all this,
Because I think it does, well, it certainly plays into your work, like as you said, right? Like how your characters are operating in the world. But I do think, because we have like a lot of aspiring writers in the room right now, and also as like a writer myself, I am interested to hear, because you mentioned it a few times, like how you find this balance between your novel writing, your screenwriting, and then I guess like you're producing on top of that too. Like, so how, because your journey is a little interesting. Like you came to fiction from Hollywood. And it's usually you have the novelist dreaming of going to Hollywood.
No, I had the opposite. I wanted to be a movie director. And then I went to the Sundance Labs, and I had a movie deal, and it fell apart, and I was very young, and I was like, I don't know what to do with myself now. But I knew that I could write, and I was poor, and my husband was going to law school, and I was like, we've got to eat. So I became a screenwriter for hire for like 8 years or something, and none of those movies ever got made. Here I am thinking, I'm going to do that because I'll just write the movies you guys are going to make, and then none of those got made. And I hit a kind of existential crisis where I was like, I don't want to do any of this anymore, and I'm going to go write books. because I wanted to write for people who fundamentally love to read. And it's not that executives don't love to read, it's that it becomes their job to read quickly. It becomes their job to mine stuff out of books. So it disrupts just a literary experience of reading. And then a script is a literary experience, but it's also a means to. So I just wanted to luxuriate in language and storytelling that didn't require a green light and didn't require a set. And in terms of the balance, and to be fair, the producing part really kind of is also writing. I'm thus far, although it may come in my future where I'm producing something I didn't write, but thus far it's producing things that I've written, but it is a lot of work. I just try to find pockets of time. Like I'm not like getting up at 4 and writing a novel and then, going to work on a TV show. No. Walter Mosley does that, and God bless him, but I can't.
Like, how does he do any of it?
I don't know how he does any of it, but he's also he doesn't. Not my child's in college now, but he also doesn't have a child, and he wasn't show running. But like I had a good mind spiral, as every writer knows. You hear about other writer's way of doing it, and you're like, why don't I work that hard? Right. So I had a good mind spiral for several weeks about why am I not getting up at 4 in the morning? But I'm not getting up at 4 in the morning. So essentially, I just try to find where there are pockets. So if I turn in an outline to Hollywood, I might be able to turn my back and quickly go do something over here. Or like there was a writer's strike. That gave me 5 months to finish this book. So I just look for like little pockets of time and try to go very easy on myself. They're very different ways of being alive. And I'm somebody who's highly aware that I only have so much more time to be alive. So I'm like, am I sure I'm doing what I want to be doing? But novels are kind of my heart. It's just, there's an intensity of purpose. There's a deep quiet. There's a pace that's just you. It's, following your own whatever. I have done the analogy that writing a novel is like, let's say, going on a hike and you have a map of the trail and you're on the trail and then you hear something in the leaves behind you. You go, what was that? And then you go check that out because that's your unconscious talking. And you just trust you can find your way back onto the path. Everything about writing a novel is a leap of faith. I've before described it as walking up to the edge of a cliff to write a novel and to jump and trust that you can fly. To write a screenplay or to be in Hollywood is to walk up to the edge of that same cliff and everybody starts coming up with blueprints for the contraption to catch us when we all fail. Like failure is in the room with you at all times. It's being courted. It has a seat at the table. So you can figure out how to argue with it, get around it, outsmart it. It's a different way of being. Now, what's fun about the TV is there are people around. And if you hire fun people, which I've been fortunate to both be hired by fun people and hire fun people, it's a lot of fun. There are belly laughs. There's free lunch most days. I find something magical about 10, 12 people sitting around a room and their brains becoming like a symphony. When I worked on Little Fires Everywhere, so that show had lots of themes of motherhood, art, law, adoption, so in that room we had several adoptees. We had an Asian woman whose parents were immigrants. We had somebody who'd gone to art school, somebody who'd gone to law school. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, here's somebody coming in with a flute. And then there's a little percussion. And then suddenly like you're all making up this really cool story together. That's like when you watch it happen, it's really fun. But then you get in your car and you commute in traffic on the way home. And then, and then you get notes from an executive and that part I don't love as much, but it's, I'm very blessed to have both skill sets. I do like one more than the other, which is books. I like books more than the other, but I also don't know a ton of writers that make a living writing books. I just don't. I wish it were a different kind of thing. I'm finally accepting it. I used to feel like I'm doing something wrong, but I just, there are too many people selling too many books that also are doing something else. So this is my something else, and it's stories, and books have made me a better TV writer. And recently I noticed how producing a TV show all the way through the end changed how I wrote this book. With being a novelist and working in TV means you can hold a lot of plot.
Yeah.
So I can be on set and know we need another take because we need this color of emotion, because that's going to pay off in about 4 episodes.
Yeah.
And I need in the editing room to have that color. We may not use it, but I need it just in case we want to shade this scene this way down the line.
Yeah.
And you're holding all of that at once, like you're holding your plot as a novelist.
Yeah.
Now, recently, having gone through post-production, when I wrote Guide Me Home, I normally write in a straight line, and I would write these passages. I'd be like, this does not really go here. And so I would just put it in a little file, like extras. And then I realized, oh, you could actually work this in over here, move it here in a way that we did in editing, in building. There's at least one episode of my last show where we completely reorganized the plot from how it was written.
Which show?
It's called From Scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yes, we did a complete.
Just for.
Yeah, episode 3 had a different, not a different plot, but it all went in a different order, and it was interesting to see. I think editors are like all editors, both editors of print, but editors of film are kind of like magicians.
Yeah.
And their ability to like.
Well, it's this
things.
like kind of unseen genius. Like skill, right? Like I mean.
Yeah.
It's really tough. And so all that is really fascinating to hear. And I do wonder how, like, post-strike, the industry has been, like, working. Like, what are people... Well, and I guess I'll kind of use this way to start the conversation. Like, I was going out with a TV show, like, right before the strike happened. But even... in those months before, they were like, people aren't buying anything. You know, like everything has been messed up. People certainly aren't buying like TV shows. People certainly aren't buying TV shows that deal. I heard the deal with the isms, the deal with like racism. And so like we had to kind of we spent months like doing all this work, like getting everything together. And I don't know, it feels like the industry isn't.
Bless you.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like as fun as you'd like.
Oh,
to hope
no, it is
would be.
not.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges is, I have said before, in my opinion, joy is an access point to vision. And without joy, I don't know what the fuck we're all doing.
Yeah.
And there is not a lot of joy right now, and there's not a lot of vision.
Yeah.
So what I have seen on the other side of the strike is incredible retraction in ways that truly frighten me.
Yeah.
Not buying as much stuff, not wanting to do what are called limited series because you can't get another season, although limited series are some of the best.
Well, Little Fires Everywhere was.
Little Fires Everywhere. I mean,
really
I'm trying to think of the limited series I just loved in the last year. Baby Reindeer. I loved Fellow Travelers. There was a show about Anne Frank that was on the National Geographic, but also Hulu, called A Little Light, about Meep, the girl who was saving. Like these are things that why are we gonna have a season 2 of Anne Frank? We're not doing that. So let me have my limited series because it's interesting. It was so moving. It was so instructive. It sent me down a rabbit hole of wanting to read so much more about all of these people. So I'm really sad to see that people aren't interested in limited series right now because they can't make more money off of it. There's a lot of talk about procedurals and it just, and even more frightening to me is that the culture of apprenticeship is softening, that people aren't understanding that you've got to bring up younger people or the whole thing goes away. Yeah. And it's been that way for decades, that you're always constantly bringing up somebody behind you in an apprentice role. And they're now fighting you on wanting to hire young baby writers, they call them. And instead they want you to keep just hiring upper level people. But then we're just all not doing this in 10 years. Like, I'm a little bit afraid. I'm afraid of AI. I'm terrified of AI. So it's not a great place, but again, hope. Because I'm hoping that the pendulum swings. I'm hoping that the pendulum swings before before we lose a generation of voices that get kicked out, because there are a lot of young people that are leaving Hollywood or just not finding their way through because there's just less being bought. Like, and in that you get people with outside perspectives. You get a Baby Reindeer, or you get a I'm thinking of shows I'm watching right now. There's this Natasha Rothwell show that that's a different kind of show. There's it's just I worry that it's just all becoming super corporate, and that the people making the decisions aren't deeply creative people, and you don't right now have a generation of like John Landgraf or big what is Nina Jacobson doing here? Like big visionary executives who would take a chance on a Breaking Bad or Sopranos or something. We don't really have that right. So I'm a little concerned, but what can I do? But have some kind of hope that the pendulum swings back.
Are you seeing any similarities between the publishing industry, or is it just kind of these different?
I don't think I live inside the public. Like, I don't think I have as much intel. I just don't have as much intel. Not that all of publishing is in New York, but I'm not like I don't live in New York, so I'm not having like drinks with people where we're gossiping. Whereas in LA, I might be in line at Walgreens and start talking to somebody about the state of our industry. Like, so I don't get as much like gossipy kind of sharing of information. Yeah. So it could be the same. Yeah. I hope not. I hope not.
Yeah, no comment. Yeah, so
I do think really cool, but I will always think that publishing has a leg up on Hollywood simply because the books that I read are so interesting. Like there really is rich, interesting stuff being published. Yeah. So is there enough of it? Do I need more of this culture being published, all of that, but it's already 3-5 steps ahead of the game because stuff is just it's built into its culture to be iconoclastic. Like it's built into the culture in a way that when Hollywood gets afraid, they get real afraid and corporate.
Well, because there's less money at stake. I guess that's how I view it. Like like the ceiling is lower. Bottom might be the same. If that's
but I would take, not to derail this conversation into budget talk in Hollywood, but
I think it is interesting.
No, but I would take. I would take a lower budget. Why do we need $100 million to do it? No, we don't.
Like, I don't need $100 million.
Yeah, can we just? And also, like, I like regular people's story. I can never pronounce her name. What is her last name? Nicole Holofcener. What is? You know what I'm talking about? I can't pronounce her last name. Give me those movies. We could just all sit in a living room and talk. Like I'm fine with people just sitting around a table talking about issues in their family. Exactly. I don't need everything to be explosions so I think there's room for like mid-budget, like things that are like 20 million, 15 million. Like I think there's room for that. And I know that sounds insane, but like my television show costs a lot of money.
No, exactly. So, that's what like a $15 million budget like movie is like pretty
low.
Yeah, exactly. Like because there's so many moving parts. With a novel, you're paying like a writer. And,
it's
different.
It's very much like the internet. Meaning, remember when they just gave us that shit for free, and then about 5 years, then they were like, wait a second, we're all broke. And then they got to figure it out. Subscriptions, advertising. Well, Netflix was like, look at this, y'all. No commercials. And then they went, everybody who has a subscription to Netflix has one. We've run out of people. So what do we do now to make money? And I'm not a business person. So to me, I don't understand the need for constant growth. To me, if I made what I made last year, that's pretty good. Are we good?
Maybe even like a little bit less.
I'm chill. But in this kind of... I've got shareholders, and it has to be growth. So they gonna have some commercials on there. They got games. They actually asked my sister. I shouldn't even say this out loud. They asked my sister. So if you don't know anything about my show, it was an adaptation of my sister's memoir about her love affair with a Sicilian chef, and our families coming together. And my brother-in-law died. Netflix tried to make that into a game. You know how they have games
Yeah,
on there?
yeah.
And so they were asking, did they want to have a game where like you would be a roaming. And my sister was like,
I think like these film people can be pretty. I don't know, like
they're just trying to
stolen.
figure it out.
Yeah,
We're all trying to
exactly.
figure
Like
it out.
they're just
And
trying to figure out
everybody
what's
wants
going
it, and I want my industry to continue. So I want people to have jobs. I want people. I want people. God, I'm on fire. I may have to take. I was going for a cute look here, but they may have to. The sweater may have to go. But anyway.
It's like, okay, but before we break into Q&A, I would actually kind of like to end on this.
Yes.
So you're talking about adapting
Yes.
Darren. I mean, I think that like this story, this environment, like these characters, you can actually see it becoming like a procedural. Like it's like
it won't
people
be.
Yeah, I know, but I
No, I'm
guess
not doing that.
where are you? Because you can see a way that it can be made in kind of what people want in the current environment.
That was a conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
And I said no.
Yeah. So what is ideally? What would you like it to be?
It is, what have we been calling it? It very much is a character piece of him. It very much is a look at this question of, is there, what is the line between moral relativity and moral degradation? Mm-hmm. That's really what a lot of it is. And a lot of it is about trying to tell a Texas but an American story in a way that doesn't lean into ideology. I know, which is weird to say because my politics are pretty clear. But when you're making drama, that's what you cannot do. And so, and we're also not going in order. So we're not actually starting with Bluebird. So we're actually doing it in a kind of different way. But there, I'll give you an example. Like in the book Heaven, My Home, Darren's relationship and feelings about the little boy who goes missing, who's the child of a captain of the Aryan Brotherhood. And I think there's a scene with the little boy's sister who is like seeing herself through Darren's eyes in a trailer, with all these kind of rednecks around me. And she's asking him to see her as a human being. Yeah. And I think that the show that we would make would aim to be finding those kinds of moments where your humanity is cutting through all of the other kind of stuff around. And I'm not letting anybody off the hook, but fundamentally, I do have a kind of brain and a worldview that can make space for complexity. Yeah. My father, so like I said, everybody's from East Texas, and we have land. And so my dad, in the last 10 years, built a house on the land where my grandmother was born. So he built this homestead out there. He's got a garden, and he's got these neighbors who he says, I don't know that I would go to dinner with them. Even though some of them, one of the guys, his name is Pappy, and Pappy asked my dad to go to cowboy church. That's a real thing. Yeah. And my dad's like, I don't think I'm going to cowboy church. But these guys look out for each other. Yeah. They check on their fence lines. They let them know, hey, I'm having issues with feral hogs right now. What are you doing? Exactly. How can we help you? So I have to say, in agrarian living and rural living, I'm not saying, because I always don't anyone to be, gotcha, Attica said everybody's getting along and there's no racism in the South. And I don't mean that. But I do mean that there is a way in which either we're going to help each other as this storm is coming, or whatever agrarian issue with Earth that we're dealing with, or we're all gonna die. Yeah. And I have seen that kind of humanity cut through all the other shit. Yeah. And that might lead you to a conversation to talk about politics, but I'm interested in the ways in which things that look a certain way are infinitely more complex. And I have seen, when I was, I'm looking at the time too, when I was, researching Heaven, My Home, I stayed on Caddo Lake with my dad because I was too chicken to stay there by myself. Yeah. I stayed in a cabin with my dad. Yeah. And his way of approaching everybody out there, like we had to go pay for our Airbnb with cash at the bait and tackle shop. Yeah. And the guy there was in overalls, he had like a tooth missing. And I was like, And my dad's takes, I'm going, where he says, and my dad's like, hey dude, I like your boots. And the guy's like, oh, thank you. So my dad's way of approaching everybody is I assume nothing. I throw something out there and I see what I get back. Yeah. And I'm telling you, and there's something there. The sad part is how many lovely conversations we had with people who will still vote for Trump. Yeah, exactly. That's the part that's like, fuck. I don't know how to dismantle that. Yeah. But on a day-to-day level, standing in line at the bank, or we need to help each other because there's some larger thing that's going on. I have seen bursts of humanity that I'm interested in exploring, and I hope that that's what the show does.
Yeah, and I think that's a really worthwhile endeavor.
Yeah.
So thanks.
I hope so. Wish us luck.
Yeah.
Wish us luck.
So we have time for questions, if anyone's got some. Bueller.
This is a quick one. We're talking about the Highway 59 series. What about your Houston stories?
What about them? Maybe being turned into TV, or just where they go?
I mean, and what I've always loved in both cases is the surface story is about a murder or thing being investigated, but underneath there's a historical property theft, right? In both cases. So I love this series, but I also really like the Houston stuff. And I have to tell you, my birth grandmother, because my mother was adopted, is out of Carthage.
Really?
Yep, and my mother worked for Charlie Wilson out of Lufkin. So
Oh my God,
Texas
Lufkin!
girl here. Yeah, so I just
spent
have
my
to mention
summers
that.
in Lufkin.
Yeah, Charlie Wilson. So.
Well, I have to say thank you for saying that, and I think that's an element of my work that will always be there. In fact, when I looked at all of my books, they all deal with real estate. They all deal with land. And I think the show will too, in a way. So I think that part of my thing that I'm interested in the world will continue. It will just show up maybe
This versus Houston, because that's another whole compelling.
It's another whole compelling. I mean, my sister, oops, I think that's the mic pack. I'll just hold it. My sister wants me to do a J. Porter, Darren Matthews crossover.
A novel or
in a novel,
Yeah.
which maybe I will. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I write about J. Porter again, but I think I'm also hungering for something new. You know, I've written 6 books and it's only 3 protagonists. I want so much. I'm terrified, but I want more.
Yeah.
I want to try some new things. Yeah. Erica?
Attica, you write for TV and movies and books. Are you still exploring poetry? Because once long ago, I saw you do a poetry reading, and I'm curious if you also keep up that discipline.
I do not. I do journal a lot, but I do not. And are you talking about the poetry reading where I was maybe had a few?
Who's to say? But
Was I standing on the? I have a memory of standing on the bar.
I don't know about on the bar, but I do remember in front of a
This
crowd.
is my college roommate, everybody. That's why she has all these stories.
I do. I have deep stories, but
No.
just curious if poetry, because you do write beautiful poems too.
Thank you very much. And I have not in a very long time, but I feel like the poetry kind of walks with me with the prose, that it finds its way into the prose in terms of giving myself permission to write lyrically. So I think it's kind of still there.
Which is something you can lose in adaptation. That's the one thing I really love about your books is the sentences are just so great. And I feel like that's,
those won't be in it.
that's a hard one. I know it's like impossible, you know.
Right.
Like,
Unless I do it like Our Town and somebody just
yeah.
looks into the camera and starts
exactly.
reading stuff.
Yeah.
There's someone down front.
Thank you. Hi, it's fascinating talk. I really enjoy it. I'm wondering how circumspect you have to be about writing about politics at the moment. And I haven't read the book, so I don't know how you deal with naming Trump and talking about him.
Oh, I'm not circumspect at all. I call it him. I call it Greg Abbott, who I might hate more than Trump. And that's part of why I was afraid of the book, because I thought it was really my earlier books are pretty nakedly political, but this series hadn't been so like, nah, it's that fucking guy. Like it hadn't been so that. But again, I don't know how you write about these things without kind of just calling it out. And yeah, I'm not very circumspect in it. And also it's I kind of want some of this stuff to be written down, because to be honest with you, there's been so much every now and then, I don't know about you guys, I'm like just walking down the street and I'll be like, oh my God, Trump threw paper towels at people after a hurricane. Oh my God, he drew on a map.
Yeah.
Like like I want it written down that we didn't imagine all of this, because I just think that it should be remembered that these kinds of crazy things happened. And what was also uncomfortable about this particular novel, and it looks in a certain way as if there's a lot about healthcare in it, and it looks in a certain way as if it's calling out some issues with Obamacare, but I tried to look at, there may be some other elements in there that people aren't thinking of. I just, more than anything, I try to tell the truth as I see it, and the thing of having a character like Darren is, he would say these things, so it's kind of, I can get away with it because he would. And I used to get more hate mail than I do. I haven't gotten much hate mail lately. Yeah, so it's okay.
That's hate mail surprising.
Really?
I guess not. No, but I mean, I guess I'm imagining the person reading your book not expecting, like, and being
the hate
furious.
mail sometimes is like, after that NPR, I got a rain of hate mail after that, after the election.
Yeah.
Somebody sent me hate mail from my book page interview. By the time they sent me the hate mail, I was like, what did I say? I don't remember what I said.
Yeah.
But I don't take any of that. It's never felt like dangerous. And also, I'm like, you're not real. Like, if you're taking the time to write all this down, find the email on my thing, you're not serious. Like, your anger is already dissipated by the time you press the contact button. Come on. I mean, like, real dangerous people just find you. Like, honestly, have you ever read the book Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker?
No, I haven't.
It talks about the fact that, like, sometimes people who make threats, that's the thing. All they want to do is make you feel bad. The ones that want to get you, they're not going to tell you they're going to get you. They're just going to do it.
Yeah.
So this is turning dark. So that's,
Can I follow that up? And
Yes.
asking you, how much is not on? Yeah. How much of the conversation about Trump is really about the conversation about half the country that we didn't know existed?
a lot of it is that. I think that's where a lot of the pain comes from, because if he will drop dead at some point, but you're always going, wait, what? Why do I have all these neighbors that want to delegitimize my brother's marriage to his husband, who don't care about my daughter, dying if she gets pregnant? What? That's what hurts, is the meanness. It doesn't affect me, so I don't care. Or it's all about, the economy, and it's all about my money. And so I don't care about if there's another Muslim ban. I don't care about if we roll back rights for women. I don't care. Like, that is hard, and it hurts. It actually is painful.
We have time for one more question.
You touched on this in your talk, but I'm curious how much time you spend back in East Texas, and how do you see it? How do you plan on spending time back there? And I just moved from Texas, spent my time between Kilgore and Austin. And you write, like, reading this after I moved, like, you write about it. It's such a special place. It's also one of the most frustrating places.
Mm-hmm.
And so just curious, like, how you see Texas and East Texas being a part of your life going forward.
Always, always, always will be a part of my life. I have frequently said I can't hate what made me. And East Texas made me. There are values there that made me. And even though there are these other things that are very frustrating, and sometimes it's really hard to love a place that doesn't love you back, which I think women might be feeling that right now about America. Like, it's hard, but I don't want to see the state to its worst impulses. And I know Greg Abbott to be a charlatan. He's full of it. He's dangerous, but I don't believe that he gets to define what the state is. So I go back probably 4 times a year. It is mostly limited to being around Houston, or I go into East Texas and hang out at my dad's place, or the whole family goes. And so I'm literally riding a John Deere and like riding around and in red dirt roads and the whole kind of thing. And it fills me up in a way because it connects me to, when I think of it from the point of view of my ancestors, they were cotton and corn farmers after slavery. And from being cotton and corn farmers came PhDs, doctors, teachers, colonels in the army. Like, they did that out of dirt. And so it's kind of a reminder of the power of human beings to manifest, and like that passage to have any kind of hope that you could have something better. And so weirdly, it's going to the place that makes me craziest, that actually makes me go, well, you got to kind of find the light in it and the hope in it to kind of keep going. Otherwise, you just give it all over to them. And I don't want to give it all over to them. And I actually don't think there are that many. I think there are more of them on TV. I really don't think there are that many crazies. There are a lot of them. There are a lot of them, but I don't, there's too many, like how many, the news is stuck in love with like talking to undecided voters. Yeah. Those people are just fucking wanting attention. Why are we talking to somebody who hasn't figured the fuck out what they want to do in 20 days? I don't need to know what you think. I don't need to know what you think, but we constantly have this narrative of, oh my God, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? We're gonna do what the fuck we need to do and put Kamala in office. I mean, shit, am I allowed to say all that? So anyway, I say all this to say I love Texas. I will always love Texas. I am strangely not wearing cowboy boots today. I have a pair in my hotel room. My dad wears boots every day. I wear them a lot. And I listen to blues, I listen to country music. I am a Texan at my core, and I choose to love it through its ugliness. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Attica, Gabe, for that wonderful conversation.
I feel trapped.
We'll help you.
Okay, I'll carry it out.
Thank you all so much for being here. Attica is going to personalize books on the other side of this door, so if you'd like to get your book signed and personalized, just line up right here and we'll get that going.
Nobody moved.
Oh yeah, good idea.
Hi, everybody. Oh my God, this was fun. Thank you guys for coming.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here. Stay, have a drink, enjoy the evening. Thank you.
Come
on out.
Thank you.